From Glitch HQ on Riverside Avenue in lovely, loving Minneapolis, this is Nice Games Club, the show where nice game devs talk gaming and game development.
I'm Martha McGarry, and I make nice games.
I'm Stephen McGregor, and I make nice games.
And I'm Martha Croy. I too make nice games. For this roundtable episode, our topics are bugs, the good, the bad, and the hilarious, participating in game jams, and the use of developer art. And so, if everyone is ready, let's get started. All right, folks. It's cold out now.
It is.
It's cold in here, too.
It is. I got my hat on and everything. You can't see it, guys, but trust me, it's there.
It's adorable.
It's got Chicago on it.
It is very cute.
But it's not just cold. What's coming up, Stephen, that's getting you excited? Yeah. For those of you who don't know Stephen personally,
yes,
he is just Christmas crazy.
Yes.
And it doesn't make any sense to me.
It's my favorite time of the year. I've always grown up having nice Christmases with the family.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a Christmas Eve party every year. And I just enjoy it so much. It's just happiness all over the place.
And I am such a humbug. That's just part of my core identity. But when I see you, I believe.
Well, that's good. I'm glad I could spread the Christmas cheer.
It's like the one thing you're not Old Man McGregor about.
That's true.
That's pretty good. We got some good topics, but I did something last night that I want to tell you guys about. I know we've talked a lot of VR in the last 2 episodes, but we can't.
It's the best.
It is the best. But I got the Oculus Touch controllers finally. They shipped them this week, and I played Super Hot VR.
Oh.
And so I'm really sick right now. I've been sick since Thanksgiving, and but I couldn't help it. And so I'm at 2 or 3 in the morning, I went to bed exhausted playing this very, very physical game because it's not only a game where so Super Hot is a first-person shooter where time moves when you move. So it's a puzzle game as well as a shooter, and it's really, really good. And the VR version is the perfect form of it. It's time moves when any part of you moves.
Oh.
So you have to it's Mannequin Challenge, basically the video game, where there's a guy with a gun right to your face, and if you twitch, the bullet moves a couple inches closer to your face. It is it's really stressful, and it's the sense of accomplishment you get from completing one of the little sequences is incredible. I had such a great time, but it really wrecked me.
That sounds stressful. Sounds stressful, but it does sound pretty interesting.
We'll put you in it.
That'd be fun.
All right, let's get to our first topic. Martha, it's you.
Yes.
What's the topic?
Bugs. Not insects.
Uh-huh.
But bugs.
Oh, I prepared a whole thing.
I was going to talk about the
I
differences between insects and ants, and ants are insects. But yeah.
You were on your way to a really good joke there.
I was. I screwed it up.
Is it a bug in your joke?
Ah.
So I wanted to start off talking about just some epic bugs that you have seen or made yourself. Go around and talk about some good bugs.
Okay.
That you've seen.
Yeah. I guess there's this one bug in Fingens, the game I'm always talking about.
You're so embarrassed about it.
No. But anyways, so there was I think we were showing the game off at Gamers Rhapsody last year. That just happened a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
But we were showing it off, and there were a couple of kids who were playing the game. They figured out that if you have somebody attempt to jump in and then another person dies, you can duplicate your ship. and so what happened was there would be 3 of each kind of ship, and they were abusing this thing the whole time. They kept coming back to do it. They would just duplicate everyone's ships, and then there would just be 12 ships at once. The game surprisingly held up okay. It was a little laggy because it's not supposed to have 12 ships up, but but they would just do this and destroy everything in the game.
That's fantastic.
I removed it the next day, but that was interesting. That was an interesting bug.
I think my biggest one, it's still in my game, but it doesn't happen as often as it used to, which is what players have dubbed slow mode, which is, you guys have seen it, I'm sure, where after you play 30 or 40 rounds, the game will just chug, right? But consistently, a very clean slowdown. And some players like it.
Oh.
It's basically it's moving underwater, basically. And it actually inspired me to put that in as a game mode, as an underwater like mode level. So like these things can be teachable moments.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. That's pretty cool.
I mean, when are we going to get our double body vengeance mode?
Dang, gotta make a new character for that.
The vengeance bug reminds me of that epic clawbreaker bug that we had. Where how did that happen again? Where you could end up having like 12 crabs on top.
I think the game just didn't reset correctly, and so whenever you restarted the game, you would just get another set of crabs. So eventually, you would just have like 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, and then 20 on the screen at one time, and they would all be killing each other. That's a fun bug.
When I was working on Chimera Genesis, there was I was working on redoing the death and respawn system, and I finally got it so that you would respawn correctly, except it never brought any of the animations back for you, so you were stuck as this corpse jumping around and shooting missiles and stuff like that.
Oh dang! Oh,
it was pretty great.
That's awesome.
I have a couple of fun bugs, but like when I hear you guys talk about them, I'm like, I wish all of mine were like that, because so few are.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. There's always the crappy bugs where just the game breaks immediately, and that happened to me the first time we showed Vengeance off at GlitchCon. I think it was literally the first time we had people playing it. All of the ships, as soon as they started, immediately blew up, and then there would just be nothing on screen. It was horrifying because I think that was the second time we had shown Vengeance in public, and that was a learning experience for me because I was like, oh man, I got to get this game tested often.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are the bad kind of bugs that are just no fun for nobody.
I know we started out real strong, like bugs, fun for all, but
yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to depress it. That is the topic: the good, the bad, and the hilarious. But yeah, some of them are good, some of them are bad. It's just then some of them are inspiring, like you were saying with the slow mo mode.
Yeah, I think there's two types of things that where I don't get depressed when I see a bug. There's some that are just persistent and they drive you crazy, and we'll talk about those. But there's the ones that actually like show you something about the game. They break the mechanics of the game, and that gives you some inspiration, or that it tells you that maybe you should change something if it's not something else that wasn't working. And then there's the other kind, which as a developer teaches you how to be a better coder. And those are the ones I kind of treasure the most because I'm entirely self-taught for programming, and so there's so much I still don't know and have never been exposed to. And so when I discover something like that just teaches me how to solve it, then suddenly I'm like, I'm not only better prepared to solve things like that in the future, but I'm more confident that I can solve things like that, which makes me more daring. I can try more things. I can write sloppy code because I know I can fix it later, whereas previously I'd be really timid. But the more bugs I find and fix, just as a natural result of that, the better I am all around in ways that I can't really calculate.
Yeah, that's cool. The bugs make you better.
It's my spin on it anyway.
It's kind of like you have an immune system. You just get better at fighting the bugs.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
That's a really cool way to think about it.
Yeah. There have been other games, or in fact, I think there have been entire game genres that are inspired by bugs. The classic example is in Street Fighter 2. The combo system in that game was a bug. The hit stun and I'm not exactly or up to date on the details, but the whole combo system was supposed to be a bug. I think you were supposed to be able to only hit people about once or twice, and so that was supposed to be the combat. But eventually, people figured out that you could like lock them into a hit stun and then continue your combo and get more and more hits, and people loved that, and so it inspired an entire game, and people still consider Street Fighter to be one of the best fighting games.
It's interesting because when I heard that story, I was like, "Oh, now Street Fighter makes sense." Whereas before, like that kind of system doesn't feel like natural to the fiction of the game.
Yeah,
but it makes perfect sense for game mechanics. But knowing how it was developed is really fascinating.
Yeah,
you're like, oh, they're geniuses to have come up with this crazy idea, but they kind of didn't.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So bugs can be pretty cool in that way. Yeah.
So buck up, everybody.
What sort of bugs do you prioritize to fix in your games between play sessions or for when you release?
That is a good question.
Ones I can tackle.
Mhm.
Like I used to try to have a system, like, I catalog what I needed to do, but if it takes me 5 minutes, I just do it because it's within my power,
Mhm.
And then the bigger ones, by contrast, I procrastinate on because they're harder to solve, and it's less motivating to spend 3 weeks trying to fix a memory leak when I could just be adding features.
Yeah.
That's terrible, but that is kind of how I operate.
I totally understand. Yeah, you got to be inspired to work on your game.
Mhm.
Yeah, I suppose I kind of follow along with how Mark does it, but but I do tend to prioritize there have been a lot of game breaking bugs in Vengeance, so I tend to prioritize those because if the game doesn't work, you can't play it.
Mhm.
But it's getting harder and harder to fix the bugs that are in the game because we've been doing it for so long, and some of them are just completely random,
Yeah.
sort of scenarios that don't seem to make any sense.
Mhm.
And so,
Well, I know just from us both showing at Gamers Rhapsody
Mhm.
a couple weeks ago, we each have one big one
yeah,
that is like that. Where
Yeah.
it's not game breaking exactly. We can move on without fixing it, but we shouldn't move on without fixing it.
right, yeah,
Right?
yeah. And so those are the kind of things that are very frustrating to
Yeah.
deal with. And so you kind of put those off, or
Mhm.
I try to put those off because
Yeah.
they don't affect the game for the most part. But yeah, I do try to change. I mean, when we're at playtest, I try to make sure that the game has as few errors as possible, and I can change those pretty quick on the fly
Mhm.
while I'm playtesting the game. Those are the kinds of things that those 5-second ones. Unless those 5 seconds turn into 3 hours, which has happened. I try to fix those whenever I see them. And we have a checklist that I make from all the notes at playtests and things.
Mhm.
So we can just go in there and check it off, make sure that we've got it done.
Yeah, I use a Trello board. It's just a list that gets longer and longer and slowly shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
And that seems to work okay for me because I am scared of seeing something and not remembering it. And so I've gotten better recently about just logging it, if not solving it. Right?
I mean, the first step is admitting you have a problem.
So when you're playing games and you encounter bugs, what sort of game bugs do you tolerate from in games, and do you think it's different being a game dev as opposed to being a player?
I found that I'm a lot more tolerant of bugs since I've been working on games. I don't think I was really too bothered with it before, but some some decisions and some annoying things would get on my nerves when I was younger. But now I understand. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see why you would just leave that out because it's a rare sort of thing. Or yeah.
Right. I think when you play games growing up, you see these things, you're like, how did they not notice this?
Mhm.
And then you start developing it, you're like, I can't believe they caught as many as they did.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because your game, when you release it, it's going to have bugs. You're just going to have to accept that. It's the important thing is to get rid of the huge ones.
Right. When I play games, if it resets my progress, then I'm not happy.
Mhm.
I'm not necessarily going to write a letter, but everything else is fine.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's from being a developer or just because I'm so chill. I have no idea, but it's probably not that second one. But yeah, I think it really is I think people have different reactions to seeing flaws in art, right? And that's kind of what it is. Like when you see the Assassin's Creed is a great example because there's just so many bugs in those games. But you see the horse is upside down. It's like cool.
Yeah,
it's part of the charm of it too, right?
Yeah.
But if there's 3 bugs, then it's a flaw. If there's 10 or 20, then it's part of it. Right?
Yeah. Like all Bethesda games, they always have a ton of bugs.
Yeah,
Bethesda never changes.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, their games. It's a lot of it is just their games are so huge, and you can do almost anything in those things. So it's just going to be littered with bugs, and there's really not much they can do but fix them whenever they can, patch them and stuff. Or you could download mods to get rid of them. There's the unofficial Skyrim patch or whatever. that the community's just taken up and decided they want to fix the crappy bugs
Right.
that Bethesda doesn't want to deal with.
I have to say, if I were blessed with an audience that would do that to my game, I would be very thankful.
Yeah.
But once I'd gotten over that, I would be very upset.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because I would feel like it's my job, not yours.
Yeah, exactly. I would be curious to know actually what the opinion is. Because I've read that Bethesda, like they're a smaller team, and one of the reasons they have such huge projects compared to other projects of that size, their teams are very small, and so that's why they can do that. And it's a philosophy they have that just get it out the door.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if they're chill about it, or if they actually, I wonder what the company culture around that is.
Yeah,
because when you're a small team, every bug is a nightmare, right? Because you don't even know if you can solve it. It's not just about devoting the time; it's can you even do it? With a larger team, it's about managing resources and expectations, right? Like you work in QA, right?
I do.
At Concrete. Like,
do.
how does it go over there?
I mean, well, it's not a very large place, but for the most part, it's relatively chill. If there's significant issues, like we just released a pretty big update for our bowling game, and there were a lot of bugs in that update, and so that whole week was basically devoted towards that bowling. But aside from that, I mean, you do your regression testing and you do your whatever the other one's called, and you move on. It's pretty chill.
What's regression testing?
Oh, regression testing is when you go through the game and there's like a checklist of things you need to go cover, like play through each bowl frame or two with each bowling ball, or bowl a frame on each different lane. And so you would just do that. It's not exciting work, but I mean that's part of the development process. You have to get that stuff tested.
I think we're blessed with this organization and the community we have here to do a lot of playtesting for our work that a lot of other indie devs don't get to do. But we don't really, for our own games, don't get to even do that. We don't get to really, do that regression testing at the like repeatable stuff. Like we can't ask our playtesters to do that because we're paying them.
Yeah.
But so I mean, you've been in both situations. Like what's the measurable difference? Like
with Concrete, there's people specifically tasked with just QA, and that's all they do is test stuff. When you're an indie dev and you're only 3 people strong, you don't have time to do that, and so you only test the stuff is going to be a problem. And so other bugs will come up because of that, because you just don't have the time to test them all. But that's just kind of the nature of the beast. There's no real way around it until you are able to hire somebody to get QA for you.
Yeah. Now I really want to. But you said it doesn't sound that exciting, but it sounds really important.
It's very helpful because you just get rid of the little tiny bugs that are obnoxious. Or at least you're aware of them, because there are bugs that I report that are very minor, and so they don't get fixed. Even though it's important, a lot of things you could kind of get away with. Right?
Speaking of things that you can get away with, do you think like the style or type of game makes some bugs more acceptable? Like we were talking about Bethesda, and I listened to at last GDC people who made Goat Simulator talk about it, and their philosophy with that game was, if it doesn't break the game, leave it in.
Oh wow!
So can bugs be an intentional design choice?
Oh, okay. With Goat Simulator, it definitely was. It sounds like. Though I suppose in general, it's probably not. It seems kind of weird to have a bug dictate how you make your game, unless that bug just makes the game better in some way, like the Street Fighter scenario, like the same.
Might be too a bug aesthetic. Like it's a buggy game in quotes, but then it works the way they want it to, right?
Oh, it feels like a buggy game, but it's not actually.
Right. They're intentional, or maybe they came from, they were actually bugs, but then they were refined as mechanics.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Because I mean, that sounds really like punk rock, but I kind of don't believe it.
Yeah. Huh. I suppose that's one way of going about it. It does depend on the game though. Like certain bugs can ruin an otherwise solid game, and I think a lot of it depends on how fast paced your game is. Like maybe you're playing Bayonetta, and all of a sudden Bayonetta's legs fall off. That would be bad, and so that would probably ruin the experience. But if you're playing Civilization and your town falls through the ground, you still know the town is there. You just so it doesn't affect the game as much. So I think it does depend, or some bugs are more annoying when you're playing a different genre than others.
Have we solved all the problems with this segment?
Yes,
I think so.
Yeah,
all bugs are resolved.
We're ready to ship it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll put that on the truck and send it out the back, and we'll be back momentarily for the second topic of our show, which is what, Stephen?
Game jams.
All right, see you in a moment. Okay, we're back after a big, long, deep breath. And we're here to talk about game jams. Stephen, This is your topic.
Yes, it is.
Tell us all about it.
Well, for those who haven't participated or don't know what one is, a game jam is when you make a video game within a very short period of time. This could be a week. Most of them are, from my experience, most of them are about 48 hours. I've participated in game jams over 24 hours. There are like variations of game jams that are like design jams where you make a design for a game in a couple of hours. Those are interesting. But yeah, I wanted to talk about what game jams mean to us. Like, what do you get out of a game jam? What makes them fun? What makes them useful possibly for you? So I'm curious how you guys feel about it. What kind of game jams have you participated in?
The first game I ever made was at the Midwest Game Jam, and we made the Claw Breaker crab fighting game. And that one was 24 hours.
Yes.
And I had never coded a game before. I only knew JavaScript and only how to make websites with JavaScript, not how to do anything else. But they're like, you don't need experience, just come. So it was cool getting to learn how. It was like learning how to code games while coding a game.
Yeah,
like a crash course.
Yeah,
and I think it was like one of the best gaming education pieces that I've ever done. Is just literally making a game.
Yeah. Coincidentally, I met Martha at this game jam. We worked on Clawback together. We both did the coding. Now that I think about it, you, me, and Shanti had. Yeah. It was a fun experience, right? I think a lot of game jam experience, the most I enjoy out of them is the learning experience. I get to, making a game within such a short period of time is strangely eye opening. It's just an intense learning moment.
Yeah. First game jam I did, it was, a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, you have to do these. They're the best thing." All the things you guys are describing about how great they are, I heard that from a lot of people, and I didn't really believe them so much. And because my background is in independent film, and there's a very similar thing called the 48-hour film festival, where it's the same thing. You just have 48 hours. You get a prompt. You got to make a movie, and then you premiere it at a bar somewhere usually. And I hated those. Like, it's you never get to do all the things that you want to do, and there's lots of reasons why those I didn't like them. There are a lot of reasons why they're good for the same reasons game jams are, but like I soured on them is basically what I did. A couple of them with some friends and some colleagues, and I just sort of was like, I'm done with this. I don't need to do this anymore. And so I had kind of a bad impression of it. And then the first game jam I did, Martha taught me Unity, and now I'm just a better person. So, so I was 100% wrong about that, and it is funny because I wasn't a total sourpuss about it or anything, but like I was surprised at how surprised I was. I suppose is what it was. Because you're right. It's just like it solves the number one problem that games have, which is scope. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if it solves nothing else, that's a huge thing. And just getting it started and finished. And Stephen, you and I both talked about projects we're working on that are bigger than we thought they'd be.
Oh yeah.
And it prevents you from working on other things. But a game jam you just go in, you come out, And maybe you tweak it after the fact, like Clawbreaker has made leaps and bounds since that game jam.
It has. Yeah.
But the game we worked on, Martha, you and I, we've talked about it, but it's sat in the repository and it's doing fine as a history lesson for us. And
I haven't actually seen this game, I don't think.
What? Oh my God.
What game did you guys make?
It's called The Tooth is Out There.
Oh,
and it is a X-Files toothbrushing simulator.
That's about as good a description as you'll get.
Yeah, I remember this game. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I had such a great time with that because I had a concept for what I wanted a game mechanic to be. I said, let's have a game where you don't know what the controls do. And the point of the game is to learn them. That's kind of all I had. And I had like a really specific idea of like how I kind of wanted to start with that. And then everyone else brought a little something else to it. And it just all came together in a way that was totally different from what I had imagined. And also took a lot of the burden off of me to like solve all the problems that my idea had, I suppose. And in the end, it ended up not being that idea, like even at all. And that's what was so great about it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's scope, it's collaboration, it's all the things that if you are at home watching YouTube tutorials that and you get frustrated, you're like, I feel like I should be learning things by now. Like, because I felt that way. When you try to get a lot of this information for yourself, you try to build your own experience. It doesn't always come so easily, but a game jam gives it to you like a shot in the arm. Right?
Yeah. That's a lot of it. That's a lot of the fun of it, really. It's just you're panicked into making this game. But it's still a good time. Even if the product doesn't come out the way you expected it to, you still learn a lot from it.
We didn't have that problem though. we made a masterpiece.
Yes,
of course.
But that's good. I think so for those of you out there listening who haven't ever participated in a game jam, I think a lot of it is learning. And so even if you don't have any experience, you can get a ton out of it just by being there and being around that hectic but fun part of the gaming lifestyle. There each game jam has like a topic. Most of the time they do anyways. Where like, for example, the global game jam last year, I had the topic of ritual, which was really broad.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of games that came out of it that pertained to it that took that theme differently each. So I'm curious, do you guys feel like it's important to follow the theme? Do you feel that while you're making the game that you follow the theme pretty well? Like, I feel like themes help because it helps you focus on something, because you might just go there having absolutely no idea what you want to work on.
Right.
And so for those kind of people who just came in there just wanting to make a game, it helps them. But maybe you had an idea for a game you really wanted to work on, and the theme just is completely the opposite of that, and so you weren't able to work on what you actually wanted on. So I'm curious what your guys' opinions are on the themes of game jams.
I think the first time you do one, I think it's probably good for you to take it seriously and try to meet it, because it's one less thing to think about. I guess it focuses your efforts.
Yeah,
I suppose. But I think once you've done it once, because there's nobody grading you, so you can do what you like, and so it can be an excuse to get going, or it could be like something you can ignore, I suppose. When I was doing 40-hour film jams, we actually there were prizes, right? There were awards for best in each category, best use of the theme, all of that. And so in my first game jam, I thought that we took it that seriously.
Oh, okay.
But my experience has been that not really, right? That you can be pretty loose with it, and it's a prompt and not much more than that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there substantial disagreement on that? What do you guys think?
No, I'd have to agree with you.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like the theme was super important. Just helped focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like people took it whichever direction that they wanted to. And I think what was the theme for Clawbreaker?
I think it was tropics, because it was in the middle of winter. We were all sick of it, so we wanted something warm to think about.
That's another thing, too, is that you can make a theme based on something that you want the group to think about.
Yeah, my first game jam was Global Game Jam couple years back. And I believe the theme was "What do we do now?" Which in retrospect was kind of an annoying theme because it's super weird. But yeah, we took that theme and we ended up making a Ouija board game, which so it was a multiplayer Ouija board game where everybody is trying to get to the word that they want on the board. There are like 4 or 5 words on each board, and depending on which word you picked, you would go through this story path. And so we had a pretty big team. I think we had a team of 8 people. We had a couple of writers, some artists. Lane was the only one who was doing the coding for the game, and I know it's just about he had a lot of crap piled on him. But I think we didn't really follow the theme that well. We just kind of made a pun, and it sort of worked out. Anyways, it was super like dramatic feeling.
Yeah. Well, I know that the jam you guys did in the immersion program.
Yes,
you guys all kind of stuck pretty close to it, and that made a bigger difference because the theme had a message.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Part of it was also we were being judged.
Well, there's that.
I don't remember the message right now. Feeling happy. I think it was more specific.
Oh, it's happy, not sad, right?
Yes.
Which
yeah,
is like,
that was it.
It's open enough for you to like put real meaning onto. And I played all those games and I felt that you all took it seriously and made good points.
Yeah.
And I thought that was something really interesting, that a prompt that really brought out the artistry.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was that prompt was just very inspiring.
Yeah.
If you have a topic that's broad enough that you can interpret it in different ways, but specific enough that like it focuses you in any direction, that makes for a good prompt. And I think that happy not sad was a good prompt because we all were able to take that in different ways. It was pretty fun. I guess we all did tend to focus on the prompt, and we followed that pretty well.
Yeah.
It helped out. Oh, but there are some game jams that have judging and contests, and those they have contests and awards and things, and I don't know how I feel about that in game jams.
I'm glad that the ones that I've participated in don't have that. Just personally, I feel like it would put too much pressure to make it something perfect or something that other people, like other people would like.
Yeah,
as opposed to like getting what I wanted out of it.
Yeah. Well, the Midwest Game Jam actually did have it had awards.
I guess that's true.
I don't think anybody ever paid attention to it, but I think we did end up getting best game. So maybe that's why we didn't pay attention.
Because we knew we had it in the bag.
Yeah. We had a really
you
big...
think maybe we did.
We had a really big team, admittedly, so we were able to get a lot done.
We were like half the jam.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. But yeah, both. I think all of the game jams I participated in had some form of judging or awards. And some of them were higher priority than others. Like during the immersion program, I mean, the not the threat, but the idea that you were going to be judged made you want to make sure that this game was at least on point. In some way. But during the Global Game Jam, there's so many people doing that I don't even consider that as a goal.
Right, and that brings up the point of like there are different types of game jams that we're sort of circling around that have different points to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Some of them. Well, yeah. There's just you gather a group of friends to work on a game jam. Oh yeah, I did a game jam up in Duluth with the Media Arts Club. Shout out to Lizzie. We made a game in 24 hours. It did not turn out very good, but yeah, we just decided the group of us, and it was just 4 of us. We just decided let's make a game within this period of time. And so that was interesting. And there was no award or anything. We just wanted to have the game finished by the end of the thing. So there's those kind of game jams where you're just a group and you just want to make a game really fast. And there are other kind of game jams that are more competitive. I feel like the Global Game Jam for some people is highly competitive, and for others, I feel like for most people it's probably not though. So what do you need for a game jam? When I go to a game jam, I just bring my laptop, my mouse. But I tend to focus on game design when I do that, and I try to do little coding, which I think I'm going to trend away from the next one and do a little bit more coding.
Yeah.
And more game design. And less game design. But I'm going to try to interlace it because when I go to Global Game Jam, I want to learn and I want to be better as a game designer. Mm-hmm. But what other kind of things did you guys find useful to bring to a game jam?
Well, I think, when the first one I did is we went with our immersion group. And so I knew some people who were going to be there. And so I kind of knew I would be on a team with them. Mm-hmm. So that was nice. But one of the nice things that was a surprise is that you don't need that, right? You can go by yourself. You can, like when you're saying, like, you want to, you go for game design, not necessarily for coding. You need someone to do some coding.
Yeah.
But do you go knowing who that person's going to be every time?
The first time, yeah, I'd planned on work. At the first Global Game Jam, I planned on working with my brother and Lane and a few other people, and we ended up having a big group. The second time, I made it a goal not to work with the people I did at the during the Global Game Jam. I think I'm going to try to trend to do that again.
Yeah.
Because it's just nice to be able to work with people you haven't worked with in the past.
Sure.
And so I was in the group of people where I knew the only person I knew was Sarah. Mm-hmm. Now that I think about it, I didn't know anyone else. And we ended up working on a VR game. It's called Save Jimmy. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're supposed to be a guardian angel and you're supposed to protect this kid, but you basically just blew up buildings with your laser eyes.
It was super fun.
Yeah, it was a fun time. But yeah, I guess it depends on the experience you want. I find that it's nice to be able to branch out and meet new people and make a game with people you haven't met or haven't really worked on a game with before. Mm-hmm. But maybe you want to just you have a group of people you like making games with, and you just want to make something really fast with them. And so it depends on the kind of experience you're looking for. Mm-hmm. Also, don't feel pressure to stay there the whole time. You don't have to bring a sleeping bag or a toothpaste or anything like that. I did that the first time, though I don't think I ended up sleeping. Now that I think about it, I think I just went home.
But just paced back and forth for a couple hours and then went back?
Yeah, right. Sleep is for the weak. No. I mean, there are some people, and we're blessed here in Minnesota where we have Glitch, and they provide us with tents. And like accommodations and and morning food and stuff. They have bagels and
like bananas from here to eternity.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, it's amazing. They have that and tea and it's great. But yeah, you don't have to feel pressured to stay the whole time. Sometimes there are life obligations, and sometimes you just want to sleep. Mm-hmm. And so that's not a problem. But sometimes you do want to bring maybe a sleeping bag because you want to get in the moment. I don't know. Yeah. When you went to the Midwest Game Jam, did you bring anything special, Martha?
Well, I always bring along some extra stuff just in case I want to choose to do something besides coding. So I brought my drawing pad thing and my flute if people wanted flute music.
Oh, you could have had flute?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. That would have been cool.
But
bookmark that for next time.
Yeah, I haven't yet to use them. I might choose art next, just to choose something different. Like, don't be afraid if you're I always do music or I always do art. Like, try coding or game jams are a perfect opportunity to try something new.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, and people are not pressuring at all. Like if it's a learning experience, people are very accommodating. I've found. It might help to just have people that because I don't know, maybe some people get way too intense in game jams, but I haven't had that experience, and I haven't seen that.
I think even if you team with people who you're not as familiar with, as long as you're all doing something unfamiliar, then hopefully there should be no pressure.
Yeah,
right. That it's an environment where you're free to fail. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. So what kind of game jams are fun to join? Like ones that are coming up here. There's the Global Game Jam that's happening in a few months.
That's coming up soon, yeah.
Yes, Gamecraft here in Minnesota. Mm-hmm.
So the way Global Game Jam works is that it's around the world, and but there are different sites that are all over the place. So wherever you are, search for your local site. It's usually sponsored by an organization or a group or sometimes a school. We'll have it here. Glitch sponsors it, and it's called Gamecraft. And so all of us locally do that. It's about 200 people. It's pretty big for a meetup. Sometimes you can set up a Global Game Jam site just in your bedroom and have a couple friends over. Like that's fine too. So it's a little bit of a bureaucracy.
I don't think you necessarily need a site in order to participate in the game.
That's true. Also, yes, that's right. And so GameCraft's coming up for us, and I'm really excited about it. It kind of feels like we've been revved up for it, like starting recently, but like it's not for a a little while yet.
It's not until next year.
It will probably be sooner when we release this.
That's a fair point.
Make sure to sign up.
yes, for real. And then there's also the Ludum Dare. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, to be honest, but that's, I believe it's only online, and there's like 2 different kinds of ways to participate in that. There's the version where you just work as a group, and I don't think it's too competitive. You just work on it, make a game within a weekend. And there's the really competitive one where you're by yourself and you are only allowed to work on the game by yourself. And so you have to make a game by yourself within the weekend. That sounds intense. I think there are a couple of people who I know who have done that, and it's. Yeah.
And there's many of them throughout the year.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I never figure out when the heck they start until a week before. I believe there's one this weekend we're recording, so you probably have missed it. But
well, so did we.
Yeah, I suppose we did too. But yeah, that's one that, and it happens all the time. So if you are able to figure out when they are, that's a good one to join too. And maybe you just want to, if you just want to have that game jam experience, just find a few people who you want to make a game with and just do it.
Yeah, roll your own.
You can also turn regular hackathons and jams into game jams.
That's right.
I know that a group at Hack the Gap, which is a women coders hackathon, they made a game at the hackathon, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, turn all hackathons into game jam.
yeah, that's another way of going about it. Yeah,
and so we've spouted off a bunch of details and information. We'll put it all in the show notes, including sign up pages and stuff, so people listening can sort of see what's coming up and what they can participate in.
Yeah.
Great.
And we're back to talk about our third topic, which, hey, it's my topic, developer art.
Ooh.
I wanted to ask you guys a little bit about it because I come from a sort of designy art aesthetic background, and so I'm really bad at this. Where and the idea, so developer art, if you're not aware, is basically like in 3D design, it's called whiteboxing, or you just sort of make basic, simple graphics, squares, triangles, blobs of color, just to get your design on its feet, right? To get a working prototype going. And then you worry about the polish and all that stuff later. And that's the part I'm terrible at because I tend to come at things kind of from a all at once kind of spaghetti ball. And I'm kind of okay with that. I've like come to terms with it, but I know that there's a real inherent value to not getting stuck in the mud of every little detail before moving to the next thing. And so I wanted to ask you guys a little bit of like what, how you guys approach it in your work. Whether it's games or really anything else.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty much the exact opposite of you, Mark.
Okay. Learning experience for me.
Yeah, I tend to use rehash sprites and stuff, and just make little white squares or something whenever I need to make something, and I focus a lot less on the feel, the juice that you add to an aspect of the game. And so I'm able to crank out a bunch of prototypes, but they kind of feel crappy as a result. And so, yeah, I don't know. I because it doesn't bother me too much that the art isn't up to par as the other things. I'm just able to just grab random crap and make it into something else. So I guess part of it is a mindset sort of thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, because as you describe it, I'm just like, well, I guess I'll never have it. Because it doesn't sound like there's any concrete steps you can go just to be comfortable with that. You just have to be comfortable with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Yeah, I guess it helps me because, well, it's easier for me because I don't have a lot of artistic, I don't really use Photoshop and stuff, so I'm not super familiar with the program. And so I feel like I have to do it.
Okay.
So I just do it. That's just me.
I guess that's it. Like, I feel like I have to do all the rest of it. Like, so maybe that's just like our backgrounds doom us or save us.
Yeah,
in these
maybe.
ways. I don't know.
Do you feel differently, Martha? Maybe you could break the tie.
Well, I like having. I really like games that look really polished, and their design has a good aesthetic. Like I am drawn to games that are colorful and cool art and stuff like that. So I was thinking about when I've done developer art, and how it is disappointing that it's never up to par to what I imagine in my head.
Right.
But so Clawbaker, for example, we had Lizzie who was making art, and she doodled a bunch of kind of concept art on a whiteboard, and so I made like a silhouette of her drawings when I was making like developer art crab arms.
Oh yeah.
Just to get just to have a little bit of the feel in there. And so it was good to have like what style in mind when I was coding.
Yeah.
And so when I had that style in mind, I was like, it was easier to do development because I was like, oh, this is what it's going to look like eventually. So it's okay that it's a box with stretchy white art, like crabby arms things.
Yeah. That helps a lot to be able to match the feel with your developer art, the feel of the game or the feel of the art with your developer art. And because I take sprites from the previous parts of the game, and plus with Vengeance, a lot of the art we already have an art style that we've been following. So like if something looks a little out of place, it's not that bad because the rest of the game looks so polished.
Right. Like you've picked an aesthetic already.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that helps to just have that idea in mind. Is that what you were?
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Well, that kind of covers my next question, which is like, what are the strategies for good developer art, especially when you're showing off a game, right? Like you want to convey that feel, right? And that's kind of what I heard you guys answer, which is to say, like, if you have an aesthetic, cannibalize it already, right? And that keeps it intact in that way. And if you have something that's like, I mean, almost metaphorically, a silhouette of the final art, right? Like, literally and figuratively, that can help you get there too. That's the thing that sort of when I work on something and I'll sketch up something quick, I'll be like, well, I could just put this in and keep going, but I kind of know where I'm going with it, and so I'll keep going. And so I never feel comfortable where I can get to the point that either of you have described in those two different ways. And so that might be something I can work on, is like finding a way to like get the feeling without having to nail it completely. I suppose
I have gotten a lot better at adding feel to the game without having to have Charles, my brother, who works on Vengeance with me, do the art. So I guess like I've added like particles and stuff to things to add the feel, but I always do that later.
Sure.
After I get the base game or the base gameplay of whatever I'm trying to add.
Right. So what I'm hearing is there's no dogma about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You kind of just work with however you can get what you need to get done.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes when you're adding something, it's important that you get the feel right the first time because that might be important to what you're doing. Like if you're working on a shmup, you want to make sure the things you're shooting shoot well,
right?
And feel good to shoot. And so you have to kind of figure out how to get that. We have a system in place where it's pretty easy for me to do that, but if you're just starting out, maybe when Metro Nexus, when you first did the jumps, like because you didn't have the right art style, and so it didn't work out right for you.
Yeah, I think with that, so Metro Nexus has each level is reskinned in a different art style. So that's something so I needed to build a template for the artist who was going to collaborate with me on these things. So that was kind of the core of the game design in a sense. So I kind of backed myself into a corner where I'm comfortable, I suppose, with that. But when I was in fact tweaking, this is actually a story on the other end, which is when I was tweaking the physics of it, I'd already determined how many frames a jump was going to be.
Oh,
right?
really? Okay.
And so like it actually boxed me in a way where I needed to sort of undo a little bit of work. And I'm okay doing that sometimes, partly because I've done it so much that like I'm okay. but it still makes me think like, oh, I really should have done this in a different order. And I don't know if it would have been better had I done it that way or not. But there are those moments where I feel like there's some work wasted. And I don't, maybe it's just not a solvable problem for me personally, but it is interesting because it's the way you guys describe that it's not like the dumb way I do it and then the right way. It's like everyone has their own dumb way of doing it.
Yeah. Do you find that I guess I'm going to say waste time because I can't come up with a better way of doing it. But do you find that you tend to waste a lot of time working on art that you really just intend to be temporary?
No, because I never intend it to be temporary.
Okay.
If I make adjustments, it's adjustments to the existing piece.
Okay.
If it's not done, it's not done not because I'm going to replace it, but because I'm going to finalize it. But I do. So I don't know if I waste time, but I do worry that I waste time. I worry about that quite a bit actually. But I don't think, and maybe this is a good sign. I've never sat down and told myself, yes, I really did waste time on this. It's something I'm always thinking about, I suppose.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because, I've learned more and more about like best practices. But it's kind of already too late for me, perhaps.
So maybe you're making the developer art. You're just doing it the way that works for you.
I suppose that could be it. I mean, maybe that's not as much to worry about as I thought. I mean, everyone's different, right? I mean, that's maybe a good message for our listeners is like find your own way and find your own dumb way.
I mean, the important thing is that whatever art you put into the game, it conveys what you want.
Yes, and that's the thing that's why I'll sometimes defend this method to people is that aesthetics matter, and when games as art it's not just interactive art. It's all the components that make up the interactive art, and that really matters. And I have did a couple of my notes here. I have a couple of examples of games that went through drastic art changes before they were released, right? And so this is a little bit different, a little sideways to the topic, but kind of shows how we think about a game is really dependent almost not even in a majority on how the game plays, but how the game looks and feels and sounds.
Yeah.
And the first one is Borderlands. So famously, Borderlands was just sort of a grimy gray shooter, and apparently was on track to be a very good game. And then at some point late in the development, they just decided, no, let's make it a cartoon instead, and cel shaded, bright colors. And I'm not a big Borderlands fan, but like my understanding is that is a big source of its fan base is that aesthetic. As the writing and the humor, it's all tied to that art style.
Oh yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's my favorite game. Favorite series of games.
Okay, so I mean, what about it? Like, imagine it was. So you've seen the original like screenshots of the old style that it may have been. I mean, would that be a game you'd love?
Yeah, maybe.
You at home should all see Martha's face right now.
It's not pleasant.
But it's interesting. I would be curious to know how much of the development work happened after that shift, right? And how much of the mechanics changed, or how much of it was really just swapping it out. Because, that's not an impossible thing, but it feels to me like you should be thinking of these things at the same time, the play and the look. But I don't know that you have to, and I don't really have a lot of good counterfactuals to prove it one way or the other. But Borderlands seems like an interesting example where it could have, it seems like they were pretty far in development before they made that shift.
They even had an article in Game Informer on it with the old art style.
Oh, really? So it was like they were presenting
close to release.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Or not close to release, but at least enough of the game done that they went to press about it. So.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then, I guess it's sort of, again, it takes all kinds, right?
Yeah. Maybe they were just, they felt while they were working on the game that this is the direction they wanted to go, and then halfway through they're like, this doesn't work.
Right.
So that's part of it. Like when you're working on, if you just make developer art for stuff and you haven't quite finalized your art style, all of that developer art you made isn't wasted because that's useful to portray the feeling you want or the game mechanic that you want from your game.
Yeah.
And so but if you like focus on making finalized art, not saying that you are doing that, Mark, but if you do focus on that and you decide later on that this part of the game shouldn't look this way, or the whole game shouldn't feel like this aesthetic, you lose out on, all of that work you put into making that art piece.
Right.
A lot of that work is just gone now.
Yeah, and if you do the developer art that does capture the spirit of the aesthetic you're going for, and and want to then change it, hopefully you haven't invested all of your creation time into a finalized version of that.
Yeah.
So hopefully I imagine there's a balance in there that some people are able to find.
Yeah. Another example of a game that had changed drastically was Wind Waker.
Yes. So Wind Waker is interesting because I don't know the development story. I just know that at Nintendo's developer conference in 2000, they showed off a scene of what the GameCube was capable of, right? And it was a scene of Zelda and Ganon. Actually, they did something very similar with when they were hyping the Wii U. They showed a similar Zelda scene.
Oh, that's right.
That ended up having nothing to do with the game that was eventually released. And so it wasn't necessarily a case of them changing the art style. That's more a case of the art style and that aesthetic being very core to the identity of the game in a way that if it were the sort of previously thought of style, Wind Waker doesn't make any sense to me. It looked like Twilight Princess, right?
Yeah, that would be a weird game.
Yeah, and I don't know if they were planning on that, but that's because we have an example of a screenshot of what we thought Wind Waker was going to be. It puts it in stark relief, I find that very fascinating, and I always think that that's why I always take it very seriously when people will just say oh yeah, it's my prototype. It's just literally white boxes and I know everything I need to know about the game design. And I just feel like I have no way to prove it, but I just feel like you've got to keep a little bit of all those tracks running, or rather all those plates spinning at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe the art that you want for the game isn't implemented in the game, but you have concept art and pieces that you're going to base the design on later. And you can show people that, and they can get a better idea.
Well, that's interesting because as indie developers, we don't really do concept art, say at the scale that a AAA game is able to. So I didn't even really consider that as a way of just circumventing the problem. But it's true. That's a big part of it, right?
We had in Chimera Genesis, we had the story art. You remember?
Yeah. It's just paint. Looks like paint. They made it in paint or something.
Yeah.
That's interesting too, because that's the other question I had, which was when you do developer art, you need is it important to telegraph that it's not finished, right?
Oh.
So I work in advertising on my day job, and one of the things we have to do this, is when we have a non-final piece that goes inside, we have to put big block letters on top of it that says FPO, for preview only. We have to do that. It has to be so telegraphed because clients will always come back and say, that doesn't look like how it's going to look, right? Or it's not going to be in black and white when we air it, right? And it just seems but you don't realize that the person you're showing it to it's not their job to be familiar with your process.
Right.
And so I know that that's something that we always have to keep in mind at work. And I think of, if you have a game that you're prototyping, you're showing off, and you have a lot of prototyping experience with paper prototypes and stuff too, where how important is it to you to make sure that the person knows what they're looking at?
Yeah, it depends on the venue you're showing it at, I feel. So if I'm showing it off at a playtest, which is just an event where we get a bunch of people to playtest games, and that's the whole point, I don't feel bad if there's art that isn't finalized in there, or if something doesn't look like it really should, because the goal is really just to get feedback and maybe you're trying to get feedback on the art, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the goal is trying to get feedback on whatever it is you're focusing on. And so I feel like it's not as important at that point, as long as you get the feel and the feel is portrayed. Maybe you get feedback and it says the feel is not being portrayed, and that maybe you could have spent more time on the developer art, or maybe you got a finalized piece. But if you're showing it off at a convention or something more serious, then it's important, I feel, to have finalized art or near finalized art, or more down the path kind of art, to help so people get a better idea, they have a better idea of what your game is.
That reminds me of another thing of Vengeance. It feels like you've made a complete game. What is it called? Vertical slice of a game. You have everything. You could publish the first 2 levels right now, and they'd be just great.
Yeah,
people can see, here's all of this finished work, and I know exactly what it's going to be like, and here's the part that they're still working on.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah, at this point in Finch's development cycle, we really just need content. For the most part, we have the base game done.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I suppose. But I mean, we've been working on Finch's for 2 years.
Oh, that's
Well, over 2 years, 2.5. Long time. And so we've reached that point, but we had to make a lot of developer art along the way to get to that point. And so sometimes you make developer art for stuff and it just doesn't feel right because it was poorly implemented. And then you might have to go back to the drawing board and touch it up some.
Yeah. All right. Well, no easy answers, but lots of good insight. Thank you both.
Yeah.
'Cause I think that it helps me put at least the way I do things in context and makes me feel maybe a little bit better and also gives me some things to try, which I think is really important. So thanks again. I guess that is our show.
Seems
Right?
like it. I think there's no fourth hidden person, is there?
No, I'm looking around the corner. I think it's just us. So it's time to go. So that is our show. If you haven't already, subscribe to Nice Games Club in your favorite podcast app. Be sure to give it a good review if you liked it or are nice like us. It's incredibly important for new shows like ours to get noticed, so please spread the word. We also want to hear directly from you, so follow us on Twitter and all the other things at Nice Games Club. Let us know how we're doing, send us your topics, and ask us your questions. Lastly, you can find more about the show and your nice hosts, as well as get all the links and notes from this episode at nicegames.club. So until we start again, remember to play nice and make nice.